Hey.
What's happening, folks out there? Broadcasting live to you and yours. Welcome to another episode of Game & Watch Podcast. The Game & Watch Podcast is an OVG production. Definitely check us out on all our streaming channels, Twitter, of course, Facebook Live, YouTube, and I think we do stream on Twitch too, right?
Yes, we do.
All right. I'm going to be your host. I'm your boy, Justin Reed, a.k.a. Too Tall for You Fool. This is episode number 55. So with me today, I got my main man, the F-Man OVG himself, Finest Dabs.
What's up? What's up?
And the man from down under, Matt. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm going to have to come up with something a little bit more interesting for that nickname. It's pretty common, I think.
Matt Bliss.
No offense to you, of course.
Yeah.
Just means I need to make a name for myself in a different way, I think.
Well, if you want me to help you out, I could definitely help you with that. All right, so today on the show, we're going to be talking about Nintendo Switch Online speculations. More rumors are out there, so we definitely I want to hear what you guys think about that. And we're going to definitely dip into a little bit of the Tokyo Game Show. We didn't really get to go over any of that last week, or pretty much our predictions for it. So since it was a very loaded show last week, and of course some gaming mentions, what we're playing, the rundown of the games coming out. But before we get into it, how y'all doing?
Doing pretty well. Yeah, man. This year has flown by. I just can't believe. It's pretty much coming on. And at the beginning of this year, really, I was like, there's nothing coming out this year. But now I feel overwhelmed by the amount of games that are coming out on this release schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I don't think I ever thought that I would be able to play like 3 or 4 brand new games in a single week after the last year and a half. It seems almost too good to be true.
It does.
Yeah, definitely.
Justin, what about you?
My week's been good. I mean, got a new pickup this week that I'll share with you guys at the end of the show. Can't wait to share it with you guys. Otherwise, work, taking the kiddo to school, hanging out with the family. My wife was out of town for a bit, but, holding it down at the house, It wasn't peaceful like that. Oh, yeah, definitely. All right, so see if you can guess this game. Not a trivia question or anything like that, but name me a game where you could first play as the princess, where the princess was a playable character. The very first game where the princess was a playable character.
Wait, the first game ever?
Yeah, like the first game ever. Well, I think it'd be the first game ever, at least for what I'm thinking. Finance, any guess?
Wow.
I'm thinking like just a Mario game, or like a Donkey Kong style game.
All right, you're getting warm. You're getting warm. What about you, Matt? Just name me a game.
Clue.
All right. Super Mario Brothers 2.
Oh,
a lot of people, I think a lot of people forget, but you can play. It was a one-player game, at least the U.S. version. I'm not talking about the Japanese/Lost Levels, but the U.S. version, it was a one-player game. You could play as 4 characters.
Yep.
Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess. Toadstool, as she was called at the time. It was actually the first game where you can also play as Toad also. So yeah, just a little bit of a teaser there. And knowing me, of course, it had to be retro, which leads us into our first story.
Yeah, I was ready for that. I was like, what games have princesses in them? I'm like, yes, I'm ready for this. And then you said the first game ever. I'm like, no, I'm out.
Yeah. So speaking of RetroArch, it launches on Steam. So for those of you out there that are listening or watching that aren't familiar with RetroArch, it's pretty much a all-in-one emulator where you can emulate anything as old as the Atari 2600 to something recent as the GameCube. It launches on Steam. So RetroArch or RetroArch, I guess it's either or. I just call it RetroArch. If I'm saying it wrong, just let me know. But um, it's a pretty good tool. I mean, I use it when I emulate on my POS i5 that I use here. But the fact that I think it's coming to Steam is great because I think it just gets to a wider audience now. I mean, it's popular on Android and iOS, but I mean, coming to Steam. Matt, you're on Steam. Are you going to be downloading RetroArch, giving it a try or anything?
Might dive in and have a look because it's free, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's
So
free. It doesn't come with games, so you got to find the games. But
well, that's the trick of how they've gotten it onto the store, isn't it? There's no compromising material in the application itself, which means they can actually distribute it on Steam without a problem. But yeah,
yeah,
I'll dive in and give it a go. Like it seems. I mean, I was back in the day doing the emulation for N64 and things like that had their own emulation applications that you'd run on your computer. But using something like this, being able to acquire the different cores to run the emulation on devices would be really cool, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just that key part, that last sentence where just like emulating on devices. Yeah, this is a Steam Deck move, guys.
oh
Like,
yeah, it
Right.
is.
yeah, like the Steam Deck is going to come out and then you're going to be able to download, like it's going to be already on your Steam Deck essentially, like you're just going through the Steam Deck store, and then you're going to be able to have that knockoff PlayStation XMB bar, and then you're gonna be able
Yeah,
to play
I love that.
and then
I
you're
love
gonna be able to
that.
play like all the games, all the retro games. It plays PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Wii, original PlayStation, 3DS, Game Boy Advance games. You're gonna have, of course, you got to go find the games, but I mean, you're gonna have access to everything right there on top of your Steam library. And this is the first time, like, RetroArch is the way I pronounce it, but whatever. Is this is going to be the first time where it's on a platform, like where it's like kind of like built into a platform, like it's already baked in and ready to go. So this is such a Steam Deck move. The Steam Deck is becoming more and more of like a thing to buy just for like things like this, that they're actively making these partnerships ahead of its launch to make sure that you're good to go. They make sure you can play your Nintendo games and
Mm.
Yeah,
and your all your other games. And I was looking at this because um it recently, like last year or like 2 years ago. Wait, not 2 years ago. Whenever the Xbox Series S came out, well, has it been? It's been a year.
a
So
year.
you can play. You can actually download. There's a way to download the RetroArch to the Xbox Series S and X, so you can play all these games and then upscale them to 60 frames per second, for most instances right now in the Series S. So I'm thinking about just getting a Series S just for that reason. I can't get my hands on X, but I can get my hands on a Series S. So I'm thinking about just buying that, getting the RetroArch, and then being able to play all these extra games that I have to find. And
Mm.
then yeah, and then when the Steam Deck comes out, I mean, this is gonna appease so many people that already do this, and for those that don't like download emulated games or download emulators, this is gonna make it easier for them to do that. So I mean, this is kind of a win-win for every gamer. Sorry Nintendo, sorry PlayStation, but
It's all in
I have
one.
I got two questions for you guys though, based on that front. One of
Mhm.
them you'll be able to answer. The other one, don't know, might be the wrong crowd, but we'll see. The first one is that I know Nintendo has been incredibly litigious with being able to access dumped versions of their games on the internet. I know there was a site a little while ago that was sued, and then they settled on an agreement where they'd pay a subscription to, or something like that. I can't even remember. But is it still relatively easy to get Nintendo emulated games that would work on something like RetroArch?
I believe so.
www.google.com.
Okay, question answered.
That was
So
the
on
best
the-
answer, Justin. That was great.
It would be really interesting to hear how people go about this and what actually happens with it, because RetroArch as a platform, they're not going to be monitoring that stuff, because with emulation, it's up to the user to decide whether they want to infringe on licenses or not. But if Steam is running the application, is there going to be monitoring processes in the background there that might pick up on whatever you're doing as a user? Is it going to feed information back to Valve that they're going to have to act upon or be employed to act upon?
I don't think so. I mean, well, I know you'd be using it within the Steam application. Now, you can use RetroArch already on your computer, like I do, but since it's from Steam, that is a good question. But I mean, I think it'd be the same thing if you're using it on your Android device, right? Like if you download it off the Android store, and
I think if you tried to go after Steam, you would have to you'd have to go after everyone. And I don't think Nintendo's prepared for that battle.
No.
Because
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I
by
was going to say.
by knocking it out of Steam, I mean you set a heavy precedent where everyone's going to have to comply to unwritten rule that doesn't exist, and so they would have to write the rule. And then
There's definitely a case where the rules catch up to the ethics, like what
Oh, yeah.
we can always do before we ask ourselves if we should do. But with corporate stuff like people protecting their intellectual property, is that an actual ethical question? Or when you simulate a Famicom on your device, but it's a game protected by Nintendo or something like that, are you actually infringing on that copyright? It's a very interesting question, I think, and one that will just persist for the entire length of time. But I was just curious what your
I think
were.
so. Well, I think you bring up a very good roundtable topic, if you ask me. I mean, I could really talk about this all day, quite frankly, but we only got so much time.
Before we move on, the second question, very quick one. With emulation on devices, you've said that it's on a number of products already. Is there like a sub community where the superpower users are concerned with certain types of hardware that works with something like RetroArch? Like, are there certain processors, certain GPUs that won't work with this product?
Well, I mean, it depends on your device and the cores / emulators that are in the application. Like on a Raspberry Pi 3, for instance, like if you're trying to use the N64 core, it does not run N64 games very well. So it really depends on the speed, the rig that you're using. So my guess is if you wanted to go at it, Matt, I don't think you'd have any problem with what you're using. Me, on the other hand, like I've told you guys off air, I need a new computer, but we'll see when that happens.
And it also just depends on the game too. I mean, these games aren't meant to be copied. So just a lot of the time, like some games, they're not playable. Like they're able to be emulated, but in the worst form possible. They're just broken altogether. If you can even get them to run, and that's the thing with these emulators. That's why they're constantly being updated. Just when RetroArch launched in 2010, it's a whole different beast than than it is.
It's gotten a lot better.
It's a whole different world now. And that's why we saw like Sony purchase an emulator off of like a third party site. They purchased the emulator in order to run the PlayStation 1 Mini, and then the Super NES Mini, and the Nintendo Mini. They used their own emulators to run those consoles. So I mean, it's definitely practical, and we see major developers and publishing companies using them now. It's just whether you're developing your own or using the ones that are out there. the ones that are out there are open source. I mean, so it's a community building these out and making them better on a day-to-day basis. Where Nintendo, you have the people on Nintendo doing what they can.
Notoriously,
Yeah.
whenever you say open source,
Hmm.
you are always the last step in the quality assurance for your experience. At least in my experience.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, I find it funny that we'll go back to Sony just for a minute and we'll move on. Just PCSX Rearmed, which is also a core on RetroArch. Yeah, that's what they use on the PS1 Mini, which I thought they could have did something better than that. But if that's what they want to do, like open source. So moving on. A YouTube duo finds vintage games up to $100,000. I guess from when I was reading this article, they went to a house, like a hoarded house, and they found a bunch of video games. And it, like, I don't know, it makes me want to kind of start watching Hoarders now to see what these people have, because I mean that's a lot of games. I know some of the video is graphic. I don't know if you watched it or not, but like this was like a disgusting ass house. And then I guess after they split the findings with the 8 other resellers, those was up to $100,000. And some of these games were not even out of the package yet. So, what? Oh man, what? Any thoughts on that?
that sounded like a sweet story. The way that they got the information for it was that it was someone who was a bit older who had since passed on, but who'd
Yeah.
become incredibly sentimental for the things important to him. So he would buy a bunch of stuff, and that just happened to be video games. So
Definitely a collector.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not so much a hoarder, although looking at the content and seeing what that house was like, it was definitely one of on the television end of when you see hoarding shows, maybe the ones that
Yeah.
always make good views. But yeah, it seemed like they wanted to push the sentimental story quite a bit, that it wasn't just about the money. They wanted to share that sentimental element.
Tell that to their multiple videos since then. This video's done so well, and now they've posted 2 more showcasing these games, but and their
Gotta make more
20K
money.
walk away from their cut. But yeah, I mean, it is sentimental in the fact, like, both these people fell ill, and that's what
Mhm.
led to the house becoming so in such a rundown state.
Yeah.
And hasn't really been touched for 3 years, and who knows how long it wasn't touched before that, with both of them being sick and stuff like that. So I thought this was a fun story. I'm glad you put it in the outline. But how often I see this a lot, like with vintage cars and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
like Storage Wars. Have
Yeah,
you ever
Sword
seen
Lord.
ones where they don't want storage containers? Like, those are set up and those are fake.
Yeah,
So
that show's rigged.
yeah, so I just wonder, like, I mean, I know they do still sell storage containers. They sell old mail, they sell everything, like anything. They sell like the airport stuff, like old baggage at airports that people never claim. They sell it. So I know it's a possibility, but this going into this, like, they knew the game. I really felt like they knew the games were there, and then that maybe they did stumble across the games, and we're like, well, like, let's run a whole show. Or maybe like someone like told them, like, oh, my uncle is really into video games, and there's probably like 1,000 in the attic, and you can go through. But I don't. The way it came across, like, everything was a first time. Like, we're just going through this like house that's so run down, and and everything. I don't know. That
Going pure ham.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's just me being, cynical or skeptical or whatever. But
So part of you thinks it's rigged and not rigged. So that's what I'm getting from you.
I want to give them give them the benefit of the doubt, because whether or not, like, they made a ton of money off of these games. We do know that there was 5 resellers that they distributed the games to, and they all got a cut. And then the people that went to the house and everything, they took in 20K, and they didn't have to do anything. They just handed these games off for them to be resold. So and one of them, I believe the one of the people on the show, what's the show called again, Justin? I forgot what it's called.
It was. Let me pull it up real quick. It
Just
name of
shows
the
you their
show.
marketing maybe needs to be improved a little bit. They got 20 grand for that now.
Oh, cheap finds. Yeah,
Okay,
cheap
cheap
finds. So,
cheap finds. Yeah, we'll
yeah,
call it whatever. It's not that important, but thank you. I appreciate it.
no
Yeah,
worries.
no, I already forgot my point. It really does. Oh, I was just saying. I think they're related. I think this was a family member.
Yeah, cheap finds gold mines. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, off one of the people of the show at that. So then that's why I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. It just sounds like all too convenient. How many of us are gonna really like go into this abandoned house somewhere and then find like treasure, whatever that treasure may be? You can't. It's illegal.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that just came into my mind was like there was these boys in Brazil that like did like they went into an abandoned house in Brazil and then they like found these cars, these like vintage muscle cars, and they were all like great condition, untouched. But the house was like really run down because no one's been there for years and years. And then they put it on their TikTok, and then they all got arrested. The boys got arrested. So you can't do this,
For
people.
what, trespassing?
Like PSA, yeah, for trespassing. Because people were like trying to find this house. Like after that, they're like abandoned house with car. Like I'm gonna go, steal whatever's on these cars or take a car. Like no one's using them. I'm gonna take them, but they were owned by someone, and the guy was
Yeah.
pissed. He's
Yeah.
like everyone's seen my cars on TikTok, and now everyone's trying to find my house or get into my house, And it's not like anything was hidden on TikTok. Like it's like, oh, here goes the street address, and here goes the name, and here goes how the house looks on the outside, and has this architecture, and the door's wide open for you, But yeah, so PSA, don't break into people's houses, whether it looks abandoned or not.
Yeah, obey the law, folks. Yeah, we don't want anything like that. All right, so Xbox. They keep buying up studios, and now there's rumors that swirling around that they plan on buying another studio. So, I've heard many things that it could be Sega, it could be Konami. You guys want to conspiracize on what you think they'll buy, if they're going to buy another studio, or whether it be a big one or a small independent one. Any thoughts on that? Konami.
Is there a reason that you've stuck with Japanese companies there? Or maybe Sega's not as Japanese as they used to be, but
yeah. Well, I've heard Sega in the past.
Okay.
So that's.
But yeah, I mean, if they did acquire any of those studios, I'd say I'm forgetting wrong here, but who is Death Stranding fellow?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
Kojima.
Kojima. He didn't work for Konami, did he?
Yeah, he did. Yep. He did.
He did. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. He did.
Let's go full conspiracy theory mode then. If they were to acquire Konami, that would be a massive FU to the to PlayStation, I'd say, because they've got a very specific Kojima relationship there with the release and development of a lot of his games post Konami. And if Xbox acquired Konami now, they would have access to that entire back catalog of Metal Gear and all that stuff that he was working on. It would make that relationship incredibly complicated, I think. So depends on if they want to do the right thing or the wrong thing. We seem to be on a thread at the moment of people doing the wrong thing, so it's entirely possible that they will. But that would be a very curious one. And like Xbox is all about acquiring the big ones to just take a big chunk of the market now, aren't they?
I mean, they did that with Bethesda.
Yep.
So
that was a huge chunk.
That was big. That was big. So I mean, yeah. So it could be scary.
It was really big.
So are we thinking about them like taking another developer or another publisher? Because Konami, while they do while they do video games, that's not like their prime thing. Like their prime thing is pachinko machines, and they're doing just fine,
Yeah.
like making like millions and millions and billions or whatever off
I wanted to say developers
casino
and
games. So I mean, I can definitely see them like Microsoft maybe purchasing a a like a title, like they like I could see them purchasing a like instead of licensing like one of their characters or whatever, I could see them like maybe like purchasing like one of Konami's characters or something like that, because Konami has Castlevania, which is huger than ever right now with the Netflix anime series, and then of course there's Metal Gear Solid, which Konami's not doing anything anything with since Kojima left. In
yeah,
terms of what I think Xbox will do, I mean, I feel like Take Two maybe like could you like Take Two like there's like so many different divisions of Take Two since they've like
yeah. Take Two.
since they split up like all over the place and have like been gone under bankruptcy and then been bought in and then like come back and everything. So I can see like maybe like a portion of Take Two being taken up. Uh Other than that, I mean, I'm not yeah, Xbox is going to buy whoever they can. Like Sony right now, what I feel from Sony is they've been purchasing companies that they've had relationships with, in terms of like, hey, you've made this game like that with like started on PlayStation, or you made this game that has been on PlayStation several times and done well here, like, let's take that a step further, and either let me pay for your next game or put money into your next game and make it a PlayStation 5 exclusive, at least a timed exclusive, or let's make this partnership indefinite. And I do they feel like they're doing what makes sense to them. I think Xbox is really filling out their library that was non-existent last
Mhm.
generation. So they're looking to developers that weren't there. Like they have their shooters, they know that they have um, they have their flight sim, they have their racers, and they have more or less the RPGs. The RPGs haven't really been as successful, but now they own like the Western RPG market, But yeah, I think they're going to try to fill out their catalog, and I think a lot of that is going to actually come to pulling in the Japanese market, because they keep on swinging at Japan and keep on failing, just swing after swing, But yeah,
It's a good
I don't
point.
know. Yeah, I really don't care about like either way. Like, I mean, I don't want the market to be like four different like major companies that own every developer.
Yeah, that wouldn't be. I mean, I still want to keep these third-party developers third party where we can. Like, I heard something a while back that Xbox was pretty close to acquiring Capcom, and yeah, I think that would be. I don't think them acquiring a publisher like that would be good for the business.
Yeah, I couldn't see
But
that happening. I mean, because
yeah,
Capcom's already aligned with PlayStation,
yeah.
but
So
Mm.
you know, that's why we got Monster Hunter World, and that's why we got Street Fighter Five,
yeah,
and
yeah. I've
Mega
also heard
Man.
EA also, but I mean, EA is just another one I couldn't see happening because just I think they want to get their games on as many platforms as possible. Whether it be a Madden game or a Need for Speed game. Just yeah, I wouldn't be able to see them doing EA.
They're not really motivated to either. Their EA Play like
Yeah,
subscription service thing is built into Game Pass anyway. So I'd say there's a handshake there that means they don't need to acquire them.
Yeah, and it's also
well,
built
well,
into PlayStation also. So
yeah. Any
Oh, is
thoughts
it?
on
Oh,
Ubisoft? Ubisoft, do you think they would do that or
Ubisoft
I
is too big. Like,
that's a lot of
also
divisions. That's all.
not there's not going to be a lot of people touching big companies like Ubisoft, maybe Blizzard, Activision, just because of the stuff that's going on at the moment. I think the last thing
Uh,
anyone would want is a PR nightmare, especially if there's going to be a big group of players who will boycott your platform if you do the wrong thing in terms of what they're talking about. Not to say that what they're doing is the wrong thing. If they do choose to boycott, they definitely should if they feel it's right. but doesn't mean Xbox is going to acquire a studio that's being litigated against for those reasons. Yeah, but I did a little bit of research when it came up in the show notes for us before this episode, and in June there were a few studios that were predicted to maybe be acquired. They were it was pure rumor, by the way. I don't think there was any founding to it all, or they could have been acquired and I just don't know. But anyway, Avalanche, IO Interactive, Crytek, NetherRealm, and Rocksteady were 5 names that came up a few months ago.
Yeah.
Now, IO Interactive would be interesting, I think, because they were previously owned by Square Enix, which would commonly have relationships with PlayStation for the most part, I think. But all the others, they don't have massive, I guess, market share of the gaming market. But something like Rocksteady would be great because that means you'd get all your Batman games that were previously developed by them.
That's true.
Yeah, very, very true. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I just don't want to wake up one morning and be like, Xbox did what? Xbox did what? Like, because that's pretty much the look I had on my face when I heard about the Bethesda acquisition. I was just like, damn.
But
All right.
I think F is right though. It's that Game Pass thing that's going to be what they're looking to fill out a little bit more. So hopefully, after being entirely surprised and shocked, you might go, "Ooh, that means Game Pass is going to have some extra stuff on it now. That's good for me."
Heck yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So good news. The new PS5 has no performance difference with the OG PS5. So that's good. That's good to hear there.
Yeah. Look, it was inevitably going to happen. I mean, we speculated on this podcast about it based on the material that we saw, and opting for the original, I think we came to just because of the hardware available in it by comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, we should have figured at the time that they're going to iterate on hardware constantly to keep the performance the same but reduce the cost. That's what happens with any product. But I still think the most interesting thing we talked about there is that they put so much stuff in that original product just to make sure that it was a quality one at launch, that they didn't skimp on anything. There was no compromise in the build quality, that they definitely wanted to avoid a red ring circus when this product released with how few people were going to be able to get it. I think that's the big takeaway from it. But it would be a surprise.
I think that's just the big risk of buying any console at launch. I mean, I guess the PS3 would be a good example with UF, where that wasn't like your last PS3 that you bought. You got like 2 of them, right?
I had 3.
Or three of them. Okay.
So I had first the 80 gigabyte, and that thing just died, and that was the backwards compatible one that played like PS1, PS2, and PS3
That's the
games.
one with the PS2 in it, right?
Yeah. So that one just flat out just stopped working. And then I bought my next one, and then I got the Yellow Light of Death, and then I got my third one, which I still have today. And knock on wood, it keeps on working. It's one behind me right there. And then it was the same thing with Xboxes. I had my first Xbox, got Red Ring, and then I had it fixed, and then I sold it back to GameStop. And then I got another one for my wife, or my girl. She was my girlfriend at the time, and and then that was pretty much it. And then while she had hers, I was using my neighbor's, and then I gave it back to him, and I took my wife's because she wasn't playing it. So a lot of consoles that generation.
Yeah. Well, one thing with the PS3, and I kind of learned this recently, all PS3 models are backwards compatible with PS1 games, even if you have the disc. So that's one good thing. So technically, I can play PS1 games on my PS3. So, but I mean, knock on wood, I mean, mine still works. I still fire it up every now and then. I wish I could play just some more PS2 games on there, but I mean, pretty much what's available at the store right now. It's good. As for the PS5, I mean, I hope there's there's no ring of death or anything on that thing because I got it pretty early, and if you know me well. If usually I wait about a year to a year and a half before I dip into a console, but
Yeah, I don't think it's too
just
often you have a console before me. This is
yeah.
like this is like the Twilight Zone. Give me your console.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, surprisingly, I bought the Switch after 6 months, and that was actually not having the Wii U or anything because the Wii U I just straight up passed on. But so, I mean, that's my experience with consoles there. All right, so we have a lot of delays coming up, so I'll go through the delays, and you just give me your reactions to them. First, we'll start with Battlefield 2042 delayed till November. The Intellivision Amico. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of that. Yeah, that's delayed.
Good.
The,
Indefinitely.
good. Hopefully
That's what it sounds
indefinitely. I
like.
mean, the Analog Pocket delayed to December. Hopefully that's the last delay on that one because there's a lot of people out there that want to get that. And the biggest delay of them all that was announced this week, Dying Light 2 delayed.
That's okay.
Any thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah,
Any,
that
any
was
thoughts
okay.
on any of these delays?
The Dying Light 2, it's still Techland, isn't it? I think it's developing that. They have been so good with it, though. They have said they haven't, dramatized any of it. It hasn't been just out of the hip pocket suddenly. Delay will come back in a year and a half. They've been incredibly genuine and upfront with all of these delayed periods, and even this time, if you look at the fine print of any of the articles that talk about it, they say that they're going to give the currently existing product to content creators and press so that there is going to be something out there for people to enjoy, even while we're still waiting for it to come out as consumers. So I think Dying Light 2, while it is big news and we've been waiting a long time, I don't think it's going to be, again, it comes up, a cyberpunk style delay where everyone's going to be super angry about it. It's just sitting there doing its own thing. We've been waiting long enough for Dying Light 2. I think 2014 is when the original came out. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Could be 2016.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, something like that.
So
Yeah.
it's been long enough, a couple of months. And
My
they said
question.
it's bug fixes too.
Yeah, and everyone like all these delays. I think every one of them mentioned like COVID, working from home, trouble, da da da. For
except for maybe the Intellivision, but
yeah, I mean,
It's
well,
its own
no,
account.
they were supposed to launch during COVID, and now they were supposed to launch for 180, and now their price is, I believe, 230, and their games were supposed to be $9, and now their games are all going to be $20. And you- I'm I can almost guarantee that COVID has something to do with that, But yeah, all of these have seen significant delays. This isn't like the second delay for any of them actually. This is
no.
like this is the third delay for
Yeah,
most, like everything that you spoke of,
the
except for like Battlefield.
the Analog Pocket. That's the third delay. That's coming out in December. Let's hope they don't have a fourth because pre-orders are out on that thing, and Analog puts out some pretty good products. The Super NT. They put out the Mega, the Sega knockoff one. I forget what it's called, but yeah, that FPGA with their clone consoles are really good. So yeah, there are a lot of people out there that are pretty upset about the Analog Pocket being delayed. So
But that was a Kickstarter, wasn't it?
yeah, that was like Kickstarter, and then it's pre-orders over a year though. That's a long time. I mean, you can only imagine. Hopefully, the Steam Deck ain't delayed.
I only kickstarted one thing ever, and that was actually two things, but both of them have been miserable. So I did like a watch, like a watch that supposed to use your body heat to recharge itself. Just basically false advertising. It did not work whatsoever. I still had to use it like a charger to charge it. And then the other thing was Bloodstained, and that was a mess at launch, and it took
Oh
forever and
yeah,
was delayed. It was a great game. I loved the game, and I
yeah.
still
You
I
did.
still
You
joke on.
did. Yeah, that's right. I remember you telling me a while back you did put money into that Kickstarter campaign. So
Yeah, and that was
yeah,
like that. Those are too late, like late ones. Like that's late in the game. That's like 5 years plus after Kickstarter's been around. So I like figured
mm.
out, I was like, oh, maybe like the bugs and the logistics will all be worked out. No, it's just every time you go into Kickstarter, just expect it to be a mess. Yeah,
Yeah, it kind of relies on people doing the right thing, whereas Kickstarter
yeah.
as an established, place
Kickstarter.
for people to peddle their wares is
mhm.
Well, I
not
know with
really the
Kicks.
indicator.
Well, I know with Kickstarter you have to have like a prototype, whatever you're gonna do. Whereas like the other one, I think Indiegogo, you do not. So it's like just if you're gonna fund any of these public crowding, fund campaigns, just be careful. Just do your research on the people. Definitely ask questions. I personally would go with something with Kickstarter over Indiegogo. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, Kickstarter is the important part
Mm,
that people will be uproariously against any kind of delay because they feel like they directly contributed money to this thing, and now they're being jilted, kind of like an investor. And then that's why they put together Fig a few years ago that I don't think has worked out as well. But they've said very deliberately with the analog statement there that it's manufacturing delays.
Yeah.
They're not
yeah,
withholding the product from anyone, and that it's only going to be until December when those products are expected to be able to come out again.
yeah,
But
So
yeah,
it
once
should
again,
be
this is the
okay.
third delay though.
yeah. The
They said
third
it was
delay.
manufacturing on the second delay too. Um,
But how
so
many COVID delays have they said? Like, when was the last one? Was it last year sometime?
well, does the
Uh,
manufacturing delays have to do with COVID? Because
yeah.
they're developing these in China. So
Mm,
right now in California, like in the harbor, in the San Pedro Harbor,
Hmm.
there's like 100 ships off the port where they ship everything into like Los Angeles that ships all across the country. So yeah, I mean it's partly trade and like politics, and then
yeah.
the other part uh is going to be COVID, because I mean China's not manufacturing the way it was, we're not
Yeah.
manufacturing the way it is, and you kind of just simplify it. You just, instead of saying like, here is the gamut of all the reasons, manufacturing issues, here you guys go, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I guarantee you the kind of product that they have to develop for this is going to use um, uh, foundries and CNC products and things like that other companies will want to use too. And I've got a bit of an affinity for mechanical keyboards. They would be in very much the same line, and the amount of products that are being ejected out of China to develop those mechanical keyboards would tell me that people just throw money at these foundries and the people that hold the factories to put the products together. I'd say they just may not have had enough money in a couple of stages for them to be able to push the products through,
yeah, I can see that.
because it sounds
Yeah,
very
for sure.
complicated to try and get that stuff going. But on a more positive note, that analog looks really cool. I'm glad you brought my attention to it because it really brings up those retro vibes of having the Game Boy Pocket at the time when it was released.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for sure.
one
I
last
mean,
for me, Psychonauts 2 was originally a Kickstarter game before. I think actually they did two crowdfundings, and then
Mm,
Xbox purchased them. So I mean that tells me a lot right
yeah.
there. Like that game, like when it was Kickstarted, like I was very hesitant. I was like, is this game ever going to come out? It did have a long pipeline, and then before it was purchased by Xbox, like, and had those resources and had that funding, like what would it have looked like today, and where would it have been?
I think they have said
yeah,
explicitly we had the ability to push Psychonauts 2 to where we wanted it to be because Microsoft bought us.
Yeah.
But I think they used Fig as well for some of their investments
No, did they? Okay.
to try and get the money for it. Yeah. But the last point on that, it was very trendy at the time to do Kickstarters too. You might remember when Shenmue 3 was
Oh yeah.
announced.
Oh
as
yeah.
a Kickstarter, and people were saying for no reason because they had a product to sell. If they're going to build this game, it's not because everyone is paying money for it. And luckily for us, Kickstarter didn't become a pre-order solution for them to get more money before they ask for more money to then sell it. So yeah, I mean, sometimes it works out, sometimes you get burned like you did with Bloodstained. I think they figured out that they can't do pre-orders for games
Yeah,
without
it just
giving someone a
No,
solid
it
product.
never
no,
works
you
out.
just
Yeah, they're still putting out updates
Yeah.
for that game that like they promised for, like they
yeah.
promised initially, and it's like 3 years old or 2.5 years old.
Yeah, so
But
it's like it's just pretty much in the same category as Cyberpunk 2077. All right, so moving on to the Nintendo Switch. So the Nintendo Switch finally did something that they probably should have did since day one, but we give them a pass because they're Nintendo, right? They finally added Bluetooth support.
What do you mean added? They went in and to everyone's console and they opened them up and they put the little Bluetooth adapter in there so it could receive the signal. What do you mean?
Apparently so. I mean, well, maybe they didn't go. No,
No,
I just
no.
so they put out an update so you can finally use wireless headphones for your console. And the good news is you can use really any type of Bluetooth. It doesn't even have to be like specific. You can even use your PS5 headphones for it if you want. But I'm just trying to figure out why did they wait so long to do this when they could do this since day one, or do we just give them a pass because they're Nintendo?
So a couple things I want to touch on right there. So yes, you can use pretty much any type of Bluetooth, but you can't use PlayStation 5 controllers or Xbox controllers or any other type of controllers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can only use
Controllers. No.
yeah,
No.
yeah. So you can use pretty much any type of headphone, which is fine. But from all the reviews throughout the internet, when they put out this update, two main things have been the consensus from what I've been reading, and I have not tried it yet. But one, the Bluetooth is very finicky. It takes forever to sync to the console, and it cuts in and out, It's not. There's a delay. The quality's not great. And that's just what I'm reading. I haven't tried it for myself, so I have no idea. And the other thing is, the update. So people are pissed like that. The Switch has had this capability all along, and they just needed an update to patch it in, and then we have all these third-party companies that have been building adapters for the console where you can plug it into the bottom and listen to headphones. But it turns out that wasn't necessarily necessary at the time. From my understanding, it's Nintendo, since the Nintendo Switch's GPU is pretty small. They were reserving this update because they were allocating the GPU for other things, or potentially other things. And then eventually they're just like, okay, well, the things that the updates that we've incorporated in the Switch so far haven't affected the Switch in a negative way. We can now do this update for Bluetooth, and it shouldn't affect the system. Is was my understanding, was what I've heard and what I've read, but I don't know because Nintendo didn't put out anything. They just said on like Twitter, like, "Hey, Bluetooth's now active. Like, go for it. Update your console and then connect the system." Like no instructions or anything. Just like, here you go, guys. Like you've done it
There we
before
go.
with other
Just connect
devices.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
mean, me
that's Bluetooth
personally,
in general.
yeah.
Sorry, T, go ahead.
Me personally, I think I just stick with the third-party devices, just plug it into my Switch and then do that based on the reviews I've also read. But I mean, I'm just trying to understand why didn't they do this like after the first month of the console coming out? But I mean,
Well, that's what I was just talking
there's
about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like you think about it. It's just like it goes back to even like chatting with someone who's playing on the Nintendo Switch. You get to use that wacky app or just use Discord or something like that, or something like we're doing right now. Or even just call someone. It, it's the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it's a great console, but sometimes I wish I was just at Nintendo, just telling them what they should do, and hopefully them listening.
Did the new
I'm sure
Reggie?
there's plenty of people that do. And let's not bring up Reggie because now we've got Bowser there, right? What
Yeah,
was
Oh
his
yeah,
last name?
yeah,
There you
Bowser.
go.
Yeah.
Doug
Um,
Bowser. Yeah.
Bluetooth. Bluetooth is a hard thing to get right at the best of times, in my experience. And that's on products that are advertised to have Bluetooth as a feature upon their release. And thinking back to when the Switch came out, it makes sense that Bluetooth is not the best experience now because there would be like it's so easy to get a pair of Bluetooth headphones on the cheap from anywhere, whether it's based on a product that currently exists and it's been stolen in terms of design to sell it, or if it's been a brand new one. But the Bluetooth communication standards have increased over time as well, increased in complexity, uh, decreased latency, but it all depends on the device you're using to Bluetooth connect and the device that's hosting the sound and the audio. And if they didn't intend for it at the beginning, then yeah, the experience is going to be crap because they're not going to slow down the audio and the processing on the device to make sure that there's low latency and it makes up that gap. And just hardware stuff in general is difficult at the best of times. But for them, their internal development might have been looking at that Bluetooth slot, let's just say, to maybe think of extra products. Maybe there was something, an advance of the Pro controller that they were looking at developing as that would require an additional Bluetooth slot in that system to where you'd have three connections because you've got those two Joy Cons that use Bluetooth as well. Maybe it was a Sega fishing rod Bluetooth kind of thing that they really wanted to reserve for, just in case fishing became a thing. Maybe it was close to when Final Fantasy 15 came out, but
That was good fishing.
Yeah.
so we're here. It was a great fishing simulator
Yeah.
and also fighting in big swords. But yeah, there's a whole host of things that you can speculate with this, but Nintendo likes to keep their cards close to their chest at the best of times. That the thing that annoys me is that I mistook this Bluetooth announcement as them replacing the voice chat and finally having, on system voice chat for people to be able to communicate with each other.
I think you weren't the only one, but yeah.
Yeah. And not having a Switch, I haven't had to use that ridiculously complicated system that requires another product for you to be able to talk to someone else. But Nintendo's still selling, so obviously that's not the thing that's going to kill it. But yeah, Bluetooth
Yeah,
is yeah.
right now you gotta give it to them. They got the games, and it's portable. People like to take their stuff on the go. I mean, you got to give Nintendo credit for that. Just sometimes we just wish they would have some better hardware stuff. Now let's move into some of their software stuff.
Wait, before we do, I just have I'm sorry, I just wanted to jump in real quick because I just have a funny question real quick. So with this update coming out after 4 years after its launch and everything, what update do you think like Nintendo may roll out with next that may launch like a new feature or something like something that they probably could have did like all along? Like all of a sudden, like they launch an update and let's say Game Boy Advance games, all the like are now playable and use like the Joy-Con support or something. Like something just like Nintendo. I could just see Nintendo like launching another update and just something like a whole new feature is just like implemented. Like you can now remote stream it to your TV instead of docking it.
For me, as funny as this sounds, voice chat.
That would be
I will be pissed. I would be pissed I'm like, what? You could have did this all along. What the? I would be pissed if they came out with like voice chat tomorrow or like next year down the line. Sometimes like you could have did this shit day one, man. Like,
I could see that happening.
Let me. So you're angry now. Let me tell you what I think. Because we're looking at hardware as one of these things, like the Bluetooth chipset has to be there for them to be able to unlock it. If you imagine that they have gated the graphics processing ability on the hardware specifically, which is what happens when you develop graphics cards for computers. They'll have a few lines and then they'll release a product on a lower tier, but they will cut out some of that capacity and lock it to ensure that the person who gets the product can't tap into it, but it means they're not developing 3 different lines of products, So the 3080 graphics card, for example, will have the same abilities as the 3060, but the 3060 will sometimes be limited. That's something that's come out more recently about the latest revision of the 3060 graphics card in the RTX line. What if next year the Switch Nintendo releases an update for the Switch that says, you know what, we're just taking the limiter off. You guys can have 1080p upscale resolution on your screens, and when you plug it into the dock, you get 4K. Would that make you angry?
Yeah. I would be blown away.
I can kind of see the Switch OLED being that. Like the Switch OLED is already the Switch 2.0. It's the exact same hardware. They just took that cap off. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. You're kind of making me want to go pre-order Switch OLED, but I mean,
that would be the big thing, though, right? That if they released a product, they deliberately used 60% of the capacity just to set expectations, and then with a firmware update, they can unlock an extra 20 or 30% and like eke that out as they can. That's almost on the level of Apple product inbuilt obsolescence, I think.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that. I just had to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that happening. So
it's fun to think about.
So we'll stay on Nintendo for a bit. So we've been having a lot of rumors. According to a Nintendo insider, Nintendo 64 games are on the way, but it makes a few questions arise. If we do get N64 games, what is with this new trademark that they filed? It's some kind of controller? I saw the diagram when I was watching a YouTube video sometime last week, but it was like it didn't look like a Nintendo 64 controller. So are they gonna really put out an N64 controller for you to play N64 games the way they were meant to be played, like NES and Super NES? Because I'm just gonna be honest with you, the N64 controller is the second worst controller I have ever used. I think the worst one would. I think the worst one would have to be the Virtual Boy. But yeah, so that's that's one of my questions. Another question is Nintendo online service gonna make like certain tiers? Because I don't think we're gonna be getting any more NES or Super NES games. Well, at least any of the good ones. I mean, well, we all saw the last SNES games that came out for the Switch online service, and let's be real, they I mean, Finest and I grew up together. We they weren't the greatest of games. So I just want to know, what do you think? Do you think they will make a tier for the Switch online service, and do you think they're gonna try to recreate their Nintendo 64 controller?
I think that's an interesting one. I didn't think about that. That maybe that controller design would be replicating the old N64 design. Look, it wasn't the best, but it was purely built to its function, right? Like technically you had 3 controllers there. You could go grip on the far left and the far right, or you could grip in the middle, or you could grip in the middle and the left and the middle and the right. Like there was a lot of variations there. And a lot
apparently I was always holding the whole thing wrong, because I'm sure you remember this back in the day, but I would always just grip the thing fine. It's like when I would play the N64, and I have big hands, so it'd be kind of hard for me to just hold it with just the middle and the right side.
Because your
Yeah,
knuckles
yeah,
would.
yeah. I have pretty big hands, so I mean, even as a
It's
kid growing
interesting.
up, I mean, I guess I was always holding it wrong according to what some experts were saying, and it's just like, okay, they should have made it better. I mean, the GameCube controller
Yeah,
was a lot better when that came out. GameCube, one of the underappreciated consoles of all time, more popular now than it was back then, I believe. But I mean,
yep.
but look at the GameCube. I mean, people still use the GameCube controller, and I believe they use it more than just to play Super Smash Brothers. I'm just saying. The
That was
N64.
probably the last of the more curious designs as well. Because I'm just remembering kind of loosely, because I never had a GameCube. I wasn't really a Nintendo console person, but that controller was kind of an odd design compared to what we still see today, right? Like the Pro controller and the Switch Joy Cons are built
It was like
very
a
much modeled off the Xbox controller, aren't they? That kind of style.
so in regards to the GameCube, that was like a mashup of like the PlayStation controller and SNES controller.
Yeah,
Um, you
the
know,
buttons were a little funky, but for the most part, yeah, it
yeah,
was.
I, I'm not a fan of that controller. Just not necessarily because the layout. It was more of the feel of the buttons and the controller itself. It felt very much like a toy. It felt like just cheap plastic. Buttons didn't feel there was no press to them. It was very clicky. Um, I don't know. The controller didn't feel good to me. But yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what was the other question you had, Matt, or what was the other thing you were referring to?
Honestly, I can't recall.
Oh,
I just
okay.
kept thinking about the N64 controller and how weird that thing
uh,
was. But
yeah.
it's
Oh
go
no, go
ahead.
for it.
No, no, you go ahead, please.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the N64 controller. I don't mind if the Switch emulates that controller because it's an optional purchase. Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah,
um,
it
you
should
know,
be.
yeah. So I mean,
Comes with
long as you're
Bluetooth.
oh gosh, that would
Oh
maybe.
boy.
um, but yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't mind if they replicated that controller. I mean, long as it's an optional purchase, that's not requiring me to that I have to use in order to play those 64 games on the console. Um, you know, and I'm a little confused by this particular topic. So, do we believe like N64 games are going to come to the store? Are we talking about like an attachment,
Oh
or
no, yeah, it'd be like the Switch Online, like with the NES and Super NES games that you get with your monthly subscription for the
okay,
Switch Online. So with the games because it's only $20 a year.
right?
My bad, I should have been a little more specific. So do you think that they will make it like tiers now, like pay $5 more, or if they add Game Boy games or Game Boy Color games, they would make
They're,
it higher, or do you think
they're
keep the
gonna
price
raise
the
it. Yeah,
same?
yeah, no, they're gonna. I don't know if they'll do tiers, but they're
Hmm.
definitely gonna raise the price. I mean, the price of $20 was to get you in, and then
Yeah.
once they get you in and get your credit card, and they have an idea of like what the market looks like, and the amount of people that are willing to pay it, it's almost like passive income, long as they have the servers running and they have the games running, and then they come out with, and they put as much money as you pay for the service. They're putting that much effort into the service. Like, you're not getting a ton of games like the PlayStation Network and Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Store. You're not getting like this aggressive, like, just flood of games. You're getting a very trickled amount of games given to you. And then we've seen some highlights on there, which have been great. We've had the not the Tetris, but the
Mario
uh,
35,
Mario 35. Yeah, thank you very much.
and
And then
then Tetris 99, and then the Pac-Man game. I
yeah,
hardly
so
play the Pac-Man game, but they need to bring back Mario 35. That was fun. I don't know why they would
yeah,
get rid of that. That's just
just because it keeps you coming back. It's a reason.
yeah.
It's limited time, and Nintendo. I feel like we've been seeing more of that from Nintendo, especially these last 4 years. The Nintendo NES. I'm sorry, the Super Nintendo NES Mini was limited time. The NES Mini was limited time. These games that they put on the online network are limited time. And then I think it was Mario Odyssey was the physical copy. Like I think the physical copies, like they only put out a certain amount of physical copies for that game.
Well, yeah.
You
Mario
know,
3D All Stars.
was it Oh, there we go. It was Mario 3D All
Yeah,
Stars.
Mario
Thank
3D
you.
All Stars.
Yeah, so there's only a limited amount of copies, physical copies that they put out there. So Nintendo's definitely they're definitely like, I don't know, they're playing a game. They're definitely playing a game there where, they're kind of forcing almost a limited edition type of feel. And by withholding things back from people, they're creating their own nostalgia and their own, um,
Demand.
need. Yeah, demand,
Hmm.
and it's kind of
Yep.
false demand, but it's working for Nintendo. And I mean, in many cases, it kind of almost hurts them because, I mean, they can sell so many of these. Like, just imagine having it out for 5 years. And maybe it's a limited run for 5 years, but I mean, you have people, purchasing it for that 5 years. But at the same time, it may not have that demand if, there's that many out there.
Precisely.
So it's a tricky
Yep.
game, and Nintendo's, I guess they're doing well playing it. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just
it pisses me off. I mean, because the thing is, they could put out the SNES Mini again tomorrow if they wanted to, and the same thing with the NES. And they could make a N64 Mini if they wanted to. Maybe they wouldn't be able to get all the games they'd want to on there, but I mean, they could. I mean, and people would buy it. I mean, there's no reason why they need to make limited quantities of the stuff. People will buy their stuff. People, want to buy Nintendo stuff. I think they're in pretty high demand for the most part. People just try to figure out why they can't do this to make more money if they want to. I can see them putting out an N64 Mini even with those crappy ass controllers. And back in the day, how they had different colored controllers, the gray one and then the black one and then the green one. They could definitely, if they really wanted to, they could manufacture that again and put them out in like different colors, and then say the mini console comes with two of them, because many of the games were 4 players anyway. So you can go at it with people. So yeah,
Well, it all
but
comes back to the money again. But
yeah.
it's not just about them getting a bunch of money. It's about them as a company being able to establish profit margins for stakeholders in quarters of the year. So they've probably got that N64 mini project sitting somewhere and going, all right, we wait for a downturn. And when we predict one in Q3 of 2024, that's when we spool up this project. We've got a big, significant gap in game development. We throw out the N64, profits go up, and they manage to fill out that small empty portion for their stakeholders. So that's it's the timing and the money. That would be the big thing. And Nintendo as a company is doing it very well. As
and
I've said, the demand, they
yeah.
manufacture that. They can push money into whichever quarter of the year they need to make their company look good.
And speaking of this one other point, I just did want to just bring up. The 64 has been inherently hard to emulate.
It
You
has.
know, so in terms of creating like a solution to where the Switch can play these games, or if they're running the emulation on their side, and then just sending it over to us like via the cloud and stuff. I mean that works. However, the 64 is that architecture is just is a mess, and that's why we only
Yeah.
got you know um
4 or 5 years out of it, and it wasn't even that long.
yeah, I mean, we got quite a few good games out of it, but just it was inherently hard to make games for it.
Develop game,
That's
yeah,
why,
it
yeah,
was
and that's why, like, Square Enix, like the Final Fantasy, which Final Fantasy was it? Like Final Fantasy,
seven,
I
7 or 8,
believe.
I think. So.
Yeah, I think it was definitely wasn't 8. It was, yeah, it was 7. Was originally supposed to come out on the N64 Dolphin, or the Nintendo 64. And then they had a falling out, partly because the architecture on the 64 was so bad. But I remember seeing those screenshots for that Final Fantasy, and I was so excited. I was like,
Yeah.
that's
Back
just like,
then, it was probably
yeah.
like state of the art graphics. Now you look back
Oh
on it,
yeah,
it's just like, I see why they wanted to not do that.
yeah. That that
So
3D blew that 3D blew PlayStation out of the just the entire like spectrum. That 3D was insane. But then like, yeah, it was the PlayStation 3 before the PlayStation 3, It was before, like, when Sony came out with all that cell architecture, and developers were like, yeah, it's powerful, but like figuring out how to use it, and it's not easy, and a game's going to take us twice as long, like it's not worth it for
yeah,
us. Like, when we can go put our game out on another platform that's easy to make, and that was Xbox, at the time. Yeah, is so I don't know. Just I don't know if we're really going to see that on the online through online and Nintendo in its current state, because just their platform doesn't really seem that it's
yeah.
capable in a lot of senses. So we'll see. It's just going to be a wait and see type of game.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see, definitely. But before we move on to the Tokyo Game Show, any N64 game you guys would like to see on there if they were to come? Just anyone?
Pokemon Stadium, please.
That is a
That's
good one.
purely, half an
Pokemon
hour.
Snap, maybe, or I would like to
No,
see GoldenEye, but I don't
No.
think.
You
I
said
don't think.
Stadium. Wait, I want
Stadium,
to.
dude.
How did you go from Stadium to Snap? Not the same thing.
It's okay
Pokemon
though,
Stadium stuff is
because
not. Yeah.
to be fair, Pokemon games in 3D at the time, it was not a thing. Like, now we've got Pokemon Unity, we've got all those great Pokemon products that are built in 3D environments, even though they are still top down. But Pokemon Stadium at the time was just, it was unthinkable that we could be in a 3-dimensional arena throwing out Pokeballs and actually fighting these monsters. And then Pokemon Snap came along as well, and it was still in that 3D environment that we enjoyed. So they both had their place, but I think at least for Australia, I can't say the same for the US maybe. Pokemon Stadium, Mario Kart 64, and Donkey Kong 64, and probably GoldenEye actually, were the main drivers of Nintendo 64 console borrowing from video stores and stuff down here. Like, you always rented it for 3 or 4 days or a weekend with your mates, and you get all the controllers and you get the Mario Kart as well, and you just play with them maybe for a birthday or something. And getting Pokemon Stadium for that's how I played it. We borrowed a console, and yeah, the Stadium, man.
Yeah, I could see Pokemon, because the thing is, and you should know this too, because you had a Game Boy. I mean, Pokemon was just on the Game Boy. It wasn't on the Super NES unless you had a Super Game Boy to play it on the Super NES. So to just see them from one state to another, especially with Pokemon Stadium, because you could play the Pokemon Game Boy game with that little adapter thing that they had. I think my brother had it, but yeah, so it was actually pretty incredible at the time. So yeah,
I
but
kind of miss
now,
that.
Pre-existing relationship.
I miss that old hardware where, like, they had, you can link consoles together, and you can link your Game Boys, and you had your Game Genies, and just like all these like really cool just attachments to where, like, I used to be the multi-tap king. Like, if you wanted to play like an 8-player game, like, I had a multi-tap and as many controllers as you needed. Like, I had like 10 controllers and like 2 multi-taps, and each one had 4, like, and then I had a memory card in every one, just because I'm over the top. But that's a different story. As far as games go, I mean, it's a very unpopular decision, I feel like, because every time I tell people are like, kind of like, really? But Wave Race was my jam. Wave Race took me to another
it was
world.
all
Like,
right.
it
In
was
my
just so
opinion,
it was like almost like GTA of jet skiing. Like, you just like, so it was like, so they had like the free mode where you can just ride with the dolphins and go and just dive under the water, come up, explore the islands, and I loved that. Of course, going through rings and doing the races and everything was fine too. But I just love the free mode, and there's never been like a wave, like a jet skiing game like it since. It's just like I've never had a good jet skiing game. I never needed one, but when I played Wave Race at the time, like just for hours, I would just explore, and the water was so blue, and I would always love just like riding with the dolphins, and it was just like, why can't I like really? That's probably why I bought a jet ski. Like me and Walter, me and Walter went half on a jet ski, and it was no one
Shout out
ever
Walter.
frowned. Yeah, shout out Walter. No one frowns on a jet ski. No one's ever like, like
Why'd you get me a
upset.
jet ski?
Yeah, like no one's ever sad in it, and that's the feeling. That's the feeling I had as a child, playing Wave Race, and I want to play that game now. Can we just end the podcast right now? So I can,
Yeah.
we can finish. We can finish.
Wait, do you have Wave Race or?
No, I don't have it
Yeah.
here. I have the 64
Yeah,
here,
no.
but I don't have Wave Race. I'm gonna go
You'll
pick
be
it up.
hurriedly getting RetroArch
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna-
finding an N64 core that works. That'll be your project for
I'll
this
go
evening.
to I'll hit up one of my retro gaming stores near me, see if they have Wave Race, and I'll definitely
I'm
send
sure
it
I
to
can
you.
find it. Yeah.
Well, let me know. Okay, so final topic: Tokyo Game Show starts next week. Any predictions? Anything you want to see? I know we wanted to talk about this last week. We got the time. So, anything with the Tokyo Game Show that you guys want to discuss or that you're looking forward to, perhaps?
I'll have to leave it to you guys. To be perfectly honest, I haven't really followed the stuff that comes out of Japan, and all of these game companies I tend not to follow too much. Square Enix would be the only one that I would want to see what's happening there. But the Japanese market, I tend not to hit too much. So I'll be led by you. What do you guys think?
Let's see. So first thing I'm thinking of, Tencent. I feel like we're gonna get a Genshin Impact, expansion or a new DLC or new area. Genshin Impact has just been a phenomenon. It is. It's been a beast, and considering like all the microtransaction-y type of, I don't know, I forget what you call it, but all the microtransactions and stuff that they kind of push towards you, it's not that bad, especially like considering like for the diehards that like play like every day. Of course, like they probably purchase, but for your just like average gamer that jumps in, you can go like 40, 50 hours into that game and not have to purchase anything or not even be offered to purchase anything. And now it's cross-platform between all the consoles and PC and your phone. So now you can just like play. You can pretty much play in it like everything. Genshin Impact, definitely see something there. From Bandai Namco, that's a tough one. They just
Yeah,
have
that's
so
pretty
many.
tough.
They have like
Maybe
so
another
many.
Dragon Ball Z game, maybe, or something. Maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't even see. They have so many like games that I don't understand how they make it. Like the One Piece games and the Dragon Ball games that they make like aren't like revolutionary by any means. So I really don't know from there, but yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I'm gonna think of some other stuff. J man, what are you thinking?
Maybe Square Enix will announce that the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 pixel remasters will be for consoles, not just Steam. You're lucky, Matt. And I refuse to play that on my cell phone. I'm sorry. Capcom, maybe we'll get Mega Man X9 announced. And I know I was reading an article that Sega and Atlas are coming out with a new RPG type game, but I'm really thinking Sega is going to announce another Sonic game. So, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. And, I can't wait for the show, to be honest. I know it's going to be a jam-packed episode, but, we definitely will be talking about everything that goes on. So,
Yeah,
Matt,
it looks
again, last.
Oh no,
What
I
were
was
you
just
saying?
gonna say, looks like they've updated some things on their site. It looks like Grand Saga is gonna be there. Mi Hoyo is gonna be there, which is a great. I know they do mobile games, which I love. Trying to think of the game offhand. It's of course I can't remember it when I need it, But they do some great mobile games, so I'm actually excited to see what they. Oh, no, not Genshin Impact. Anyway, but yeah. Also, Ubisoft is going to be there. And then yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Square Enix announced something about Final Fantasy. And Arc System Works is going to be there, which is known for like their wonderful fighting games. So maybe we do get Dragon Ball Fighter Z. Maybe we get a number 2 or like some type of offshoot of that.
You're finally saying it right. Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
Oh yeah, because it's supposed to be fighters. Yeah. So
Dragon Ball Fighter GT.
Ooh, that would
It
be
had all those
interesting.
characters in it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I got. I don't have anything too surprising. Oh, Sega. Maybe we'll see Street Fighter 6. Not Sega, Capcom.
You mean Capcom?
Capcom.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll see Street Fighter 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know we wanted to talk about it last week, but again, we just ran way over time last week. So, yeah, I just want to touch back with that. So, the release rundown of the games coming out this week. We do our best to not leave any game out. So, I know some of these finalists had mentioned last week coming out on the 21st. Kingdom Bridge of Spirits for the PS5, PS4, and PC. Shelter 2 for the PC. World War Z Aftermath for the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC on the 21st also. Pokemon Unite coming to iOS and Android. You also got Diablo 2 Resurrected, excuse me. Diablo 2 Resurrected coming to PC. Ember for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries for the PS5 and PS4. Sable for the Xbox Series XS1 and PC. Death Stranding Director's Cut for the PS5. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot for the Switch. And Lost Judgment for the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, and Xbox One. Any games on this list that interest you guys or that our audience should check out?
One thing
okay, I'll start. Okay.
You jumped in, Jay, man. That's all you. Yeah. You jumped in there furiously. Okay. Yeah.
You were very polite, so please have the floor.
No. Ember looks pretty good. Just putting out the fires. I put a trailer in the Discord earlier today, but yeah, that looks interesting. Kind of, I don't know if you ever played Fireman on that Super NES or PS1. Kind of reminds me of that game a bit.
As someone who talked about Power Washing Simulator and being a big fan of that, I'm sure I could commiserate with a fire whatever emergency services simulator that's actually good for a change. Yeah, no, that'd be really cool. I just wanted to say before that Sheltered number 1 I think is a free game on the Epic Store at the moment, so if you wanted to check it out before you jumped into 2, jump on there and see if you can grab it. Pokemon Unite on smartphones as well, that's going to be a big one. We did talk about Pokemon for a little bit there. And look, I don't think you misstepped saying Diablo 2 Remastered either, because that's essentially what it is, just needed a different kind of name. But I think that's the one to watch this week, because with Activision Blizzard in the position that they're in with the lawsuits and technically the way they've behaved, there's a lot of stuff coming out still about that there's no one in there that we had to fire that has their name represented in there. We changed character builds and the avatar designs, so they're more like warriors and less like they stepped out of a nightclub. They're really trying to appease fans as much as possible, but I think the advice that's come out of them about this is, do what you will do. We're not telling you to buy it one way or the other, which tells us that they're really not expecting a big bunch of sales. But it could very well be that it does make a big chunk of change, because there's a huge fan base there, and I will be one of them. But I don't think I'll be dropping any money on it.
Finest,
It'd be
any
interesting to
game this week?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm actually gonna pick up Diablo 2.
cool.
Despite everything that's going on
hmm
with the companies and everything, there's been like talks of like boycotting their games and things like that, and which makes sense in regards to everything. But there's still all these people that worked on these games. There's still all the people that work for these companies. They don't necessarily want to pick up and leave and find a new job. They want to change the environment that they're in for their better. And they specifically said, like, on Twitter, and in like news interviews and stuff, that please don't boycott the games. Because these games are they're supporting the company, but it's also supporting the people that made it. And a lot of these people that made these games, this is their livelihood and their time and effort, and
Mm.
it takes a lot. It takes a lot to make a game. It's just a lot of people that makes these games. But even more
Yeah.
so on a more personal level, like Diablo 2, I loved it. I loved it back in the day. It was a great game. They
Stay
are
a
doing.
while and listen.
Oh my gosh, that was great. And yeah, it's just nostalgia, and it speaks to my heart. And I think it may have been like the first like dungeon crawler, like that, like I really played on the PC. It
It's
didn't
the
work
it's the
very.
one first one that had real market share, I think, that hit consumers because Baldur's Gate was still a big one before
Mm,
Diablo 2, I think. But yeah, you're right. Diablo 2
yeah,
hits.
and Baldur's Gate was after Diablo 2 for me. Like, it might have been out at
Mm.
the time, but um, my friend introduced me to that later, and it's still the aesthetic didn't touch me like Diablo did. Just smashing in skeletons' heads. I mean, you get to do that in Baldur's Gate too, but
Could I ask,
yeah,
Dark Alliance 2 for the PS2? Did you have that?
I believe I did. I'm pretty sure I did.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I think my friend. I think my friend. I think that might have been actually my first entry to Baldur's Gate, because I didn't play it on PC originally. I played it on console
Mm.
originally, or it might have been at the
Yeah, me
arcade.
too.
It was at the arcade too, right? Wasn't there?
Arcades here.
I,
I don't think they were a thing in
we'd
Australia.
have to Google that maybe, but
Okay, okay. So it's tough to go back in this deep dark dungeon of my mind, and remember these things. But yeah, I think I definitely played it in an arcade, so I know I did that. And that
okay.
might have been my first exposure to it, and then I bought it for my console. Um,
Mm.
I don't know if it was PS2, but we'll just say it was. And then the other
Yeah.
thing, of course, Kena Bridge of Spirits, which I went to go actually to pick up this week. And I was
Oh,
like,
right
I was
on.
like, I thought it was out. Like, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna go pick up Kena and start that, and I'm gonna talk about it on the podcast. And then I found out, I was like, oh, I still have a couple of days left. And I was like, oh well. But I was surprised that it's not a full priced PlayStation game. It's only $40. And then I was like, oh, I'm definitely picking it up now. I thought it was gonna be like $65 for sure. So the
Mm.
fact that it's like $40, I was just like, really? I was like, I feel like this game looks so beautiful. It looks so clean. The mechanics look like they're there, and like it has Sony's backing. I just figured it would have been like a $60 game right out the gates. But I guess Sony bases that on developer, or maybe I don't know how long the game is. So I'm really curious to see why it's not. I guess I'll never really know, but I'm curious to get into the game and you know play it, because it looks wonderful. And it looks like it's a full game, and it looks like everything's there. So I'm really curious to why Sony and the developers fell on that price.
Mm. Did
Sounds
either of you
good,
play Death
definitely.
Stranding?
Oh yeah, I played it on PS4. Great game. I'm not getting the director's cut because I have a whole lot of other games to play, but Death Stranding, very, very good game. I love the choices you can make in the game. And then even playing the PS4 version on my PS5, it looked different than as opposed to when I was playing it on my PS4. So,
Cool.
I mean, Yeah, definitely. If you guys don't have a, yeah, oh, you didn't play, yeah. If you guys have a PS5, didn't have a PS4, yeah, definitely check out Death Stranding, the director's cut. You won't be disappointed. All right. So with that being said, the my favorite part of the show, what are we playing this week? Any takers?
I have been playing a lot over the last week. Actually, I had to write a list down because I can't remember them, but I did finish Psychonauts 2. Very
Yes.
good.
Okay,
Definitely
very
well worth
good.
playing. The Artful Escape that came out last week, I did give that a go. And while it's not, it's a bit less of a game, more of an experience, I think. But it is well worth it. It's a very well designed game, and the music in it is excellent. Just being able to run through platforming environments and holding the X button to just shred guitar all the way through, really cool. I also played Origami for my other podcast, the Restart Games podcast. Plug. And but mostly in anticipation for Origami 2, because I hate Origami as a game because they took shortcuts. It's the kind of game where they put together, the premise is good, what they sell it to you as is like what you want, but when it gets into your hands, you realize they took a bunch of shortcuts. It's not as polished as you like. You can't jump. I think I said this last week, but you got a ninja game where you run around as a ninja and you cannot jump in the first one. I'm very glad to say that they fixed that with the new one, with Origami 2. You can jump, but you don't have the kind of shadow powers you did before, which means the traversal is very homogenous to all of the other games you can imagine. But there are still seams there, although I'm more willing to push myself through it. But anyway, Origami 2. That's what I'll be playing a little bit more of this week.
No, I was curious about that when you said that because, yeah, I've definitely seen it, and it very much gave me those Tenchu vibes. So,
Yes. So if you're a Tenchu guy, if
mhm.
like Tenchu Z on 360, I played so much of that. So much. If that's what hits for you, then Origami 2 will be the one that suits you a lot more than the first one.
Okay.
Don't even touch the first one. It's got no canon, no
I won't.
story links.
Yeah.
They have nothing to do with each other. They're completely different games. So yeah, jump into
All right, sounds good.
see how that feels.
All right, so just jump into two if you decide to get into it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What else are you playing, F?
So wait,
Yeah, what are you playing?
that was the guitar game, Origami 2.
Artful Escape, Psychonauts 2, and Origami 2.
You have been busy.
Yeah, you've been.
Yeah, man. Well, it's because Game Pass. There's a lot of stuff coming
Yeah.
out on Game Pass at the moment, and they're looking at releasing even more. Like September has been a good month for Game Pass.
Yeah, I was
Jump
reading.
in and have a look.
Yeah, I was definitely reading some stuff. Definitely October seems to be loaded with Game Pass. Yeah, F, what are you playing, man?
So I had a lot of attempts to try a lot of a lot of games. So for me, Dragon Ball Z Fighters, um, is one that they like PlayStation on the PlayStation Plus store. They had a sale for the third DLC character pack. So you got like Super Saiyan Goku with the God mode, Super Saiyan God mode Goku with the silver platinum hair, and then you got just more Dragon Ball Z characters from like the more recent iteration. You got Master Roshi, um, and you got a couple other characters. So I downloaded them, but I didn't jump in. I just bought the DLC pack, and I meant to jump in. But I also downloaded the update for No Man's Sky, so I can jump into that. That update took forever, so I didn't get to get into that either. And then I also was like, oh, Warframe recently, like maybe like 5-6 months back, they did an update. So I was like, oh, let me jump into Warframe. I tried to jump into that. That needed an update. So I was like, oh my gosh. So with like everything updating in the background. I played a lot of Hades.
Good.
Everything is now updated, and everything I want to play is now updated. And then I was playing one other game, and I'm trying to remember what it was offhand. Did not play it, but I purchased the first Psychonauts, so I can finish that because I played that and I probably only played that for a couple hours, and I just never got around to it, to finishing it. So I want to play that before I play number 2. And yeah, and then I played just played Hades. So I updated and bought a whole bunch of stuff. Hopefully I get around to it and I'll be able to give you more next episode. Is where I'm coming from.
No worries. For me, so I turned on my PS5 this week, earlier in the week, and so I started going through some of the games I didn't play on the PS4. One of them, believe it or not, was Infamous. So I decided to give Infamous Second Son a shot. So far, so good. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty good game. I'm liking it a lot so far. Other games I've been playing is Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story for the 3DS. So far, that's
a documentary for how Bowser became the new head of Nintendo.
I guess so. Well, I mean, they're playing inside his stomach, so it's
fine.
it's a pretty
joke. Move on.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, but yeah, I'm playing that one, and then Finance, you're gonna be mad at me, but I think I chose my racing game for 2021, Cruising Blast.
The Triceratops riding game that you mentioned last week.
I had to pick it up, and so far so good. I haven't played too much into it. I played like maybe 2 or 3 races, but it's a fun game, definitely. I may have played it only once in the arcade. I haven't really seen it all around all that much, but I mean, if you love racing games, you'll love it. It's very fast action, very arcadey style. And I'm just kidding you, Finance. I will still pick up Hot Wheels when that comes out. I'll even buy. Because I know.
What's
the
that?
Hot Wheels Unleashed. It comes out at the end of the month. We'll probably run it down
30th.
next week on the it comes out at the end of the month. But yeah, definitely, we should probably all get in on Hot Wheels if you ask me. But I don't know. But
I'm buying it day one, so
you're buying it day one.
Hot Wheels. Yeah, man. I was on a buying spree. Like, there were so many games that I wanted like this last week, and I was just like going through the list, and I was like Diablo, Kena, I was just like going through Hot Wheels. I was like, oh my gosh, because I'm not gonna play Call of Duty or Battlefield when it comes out. I'm not gonna, I want to play Halo. But
Halo for me and probably Forza. Halo for me and probably Forza. Forza Horizon 5. I'll definitely jump into that when that comes out in November. But yeah, right now, I mean, getting my racing fix with Cruising Blast. Definitely check it out, people. And yeah, we'll get Hot Wheels. You should get it too, Matt. Yeah, we'll all race together. You got a PS4.
Game Pass. I'm in. Yeah, I'll have to dust off the PS4 at some point because when God of War comes out and all these PlayStation exclusives come out, I'll be crossing my fingers that they're still on PS4 in the case I can't get a PS5. But there's still some stuff I want to revisit on that console too. It's just been away for a little while for me.
All right, folks. So that being said, episode 55. I guess we'll just put it in the books now. For Finest Stabs and Matt Bliss, I'm Justin Reed, aka Too Tall for You Fool. Thank you for listening and/or watching the Game & Watch podcast. We hope to see you next time. Thank you all. Bye now. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye.
Later.
Stay a while and listen.